and we're not the first ones to say this, but still, yet the problem persists. Why are these
Problem
areas where
persists.
the government is inserting itself? Why do they see the most inflation? And like the weather, everyone talks about it, but no one does anything about it.
Yeah, and we're experiencing that here in the Valley of the Sun in the last 2-3 years, more so than ever in its history, as more and more people, rightfully so, are flocking to places like this because there's a bit of freedom left from places where the freedom is being squelched, like California and New York and Illinois. But we still have that same regime that's supported all those dollars going into those particular areas is still at work, and it's driving the cost of living up in places like this as well. So it's something to note and something to recognize. What is the solution? I think the solution is can we possibly get some level of agreement? And it may be too late for this. I don't know. I mean, it's never too late, I suppose, but get some level of agreement that you need to unleash the private sector, the innovative part of the economy, get the shackles off of them, let them run. Problem is that I think you do have a small minority right now that has a big, loud voice and that's got some control, that's driving this agenda that's anti-growth. It's literally anti-growth. It's literally anti-family. It's literally anti-business and innovation.
Well, let's talk about what people can do from an individual standpoint, or how it can inform their investing decisions. Because I think, broadly speaking, as we've said in previous episodes, the net worth has gotten better for those who have a net worth.
Well, and some would argue that that's only because of the inflating of everything, and there's some truth to that.
There's some truth to that, but that does tell you if you want to keep up, you have to have your money somewhere other than cash and probably fixed incomes, broadly speaking.
So there's this story floating out there these days about the Great Taking, which is a book that was written by I think there's a middle name, but his name is David Webb. Give David some credit for his book. I think it was a book. There's also a documentary, I think, floating around about it. And it's very negative, and it's telling you that they're trying to take away your ownership, and there's ownership of whatever, house, securities, all of that is set up so that if you have any kind of, a custodial account like we all do at brokerage firms, they have the right to ultimately, confiscate your assets, all in the name of trying to, secure liquidity for themselves and any others. And same with your house and all this. We could spend hours going into the detail, but what point is, it's to me, it's yet another one of these cataclysmic stories of impending doom, which if I had a penny even for every time I've heard that over almost 40 years of doing this, we probably wouldn't be doing this right now. But nothing against David, but because a lot of what he's talking about is absolutely true. It's just so the solution, and he'll give a number of different suggestions as to what you can do. But I would challenge that if it's true that that's what's really happening, we have nowhere to hide. You have nowhere to hide. Nobody has anywhere to hide. You can't buy enough precious metals. You can't get it debt free enough. You can't buy enough freeze dried food to fend against that or fend that off. So I would challenge, we've been dealt a hand. We've got to play that hand. And the best way to do that is to continue to promote the kinds of pro-growth, pro-family, pro-innovation type of policies that we do promote, that you look for people that can manage through in running their business as ways to invest your money. And that's our solution to offsetting these obvious evils that are out there.
We're not denying the existence of evil, and we're not even denying that people aren't trying to enact some of these things in the long term. We're just saying that how it's going to play out, though, is not going to be that clean, that obvious. And what is your best way to manage that? And if you want to move, go into cash, canned food, and bullets, and go into a bunker, well, I mean, there's a cost to doing that too,
right? And
you're going to miss out on a lot.
And that's where I just go back to what I just said about there won't be anywhere to hide if that's really what the cataclysm is going to bring on. And even if you did somehow survive it. Okay, then what? There's nobody left, or almost everybody's just shaking violently in the streets. So that to me, that ultimately ends up in some ways, there's some irresponsibility, I think, in throwing those things out there, but it is our responsibility to think about those as we relate with our clients and when we're talking about as professional money managers, how you react to these things. And, it's not to say that you don't have your outlets, that you don't have, certain things in place that could help offset some of the potential, downsides. But how many, we've been through so many different crises. I mean, and we find our way out of them. I think the problem, though, is that the reason I say that story is true, or that what they're talking about being the negative is true, is that it's been chipping away at our wealth and standards of living. Unfortunately, and it's unnecessary. And at the lower socioeconomic levels, call it, just put it like in terms of third world nations, people literally die because of this stuff. It's horrific. In the first world, we don't live as same the level of standard, or we're not at the same standard of living that we could be in the alternative. But it's a different degree of how much it chips away at us. And especially if you're aware that those things are happening, does anybody want to deny? Well, there's no denial. I mean, since the dollar's been fiat, it's lost 90+% of its value. That's a bad thing, but that's what they've done. And who are they? Well, I don't buy that it's a concerted effort to do anything. It could well be people that are working under what they think are the best interests of the populace, of civilization, but they just are making mistakes and don't seem to be able to change that. But again, that's the hand we've been dealt, and we have been able to increase standards of living, generally speaking, except for in the last few years. COVID did actually make us take a step back in, for example, life expectancies. Maybe not surprising, but I
think you mean the response to COVID.
Right.
They just take a step back.
Yeah, and it wasn't COVID; it was the response, for sure. Far more. I saw a statistic, and there finally are some stats coming out, some research coming out, saying the number of people that died for COVID response related things is at minimum 10 times the number of people that actually died from the actual disease itself, and those numbers were skewed by a guy died in a car accident, but suffered from a positive COVID test, and they gave him a death as being caused by COVID. We all know that was happening. So anyway, getting more into it perhaps than we want to, going back to what your point was, which is the 2-income family, might be a noble goal. What Blake was trying to do is to try and figure out, what do we need to do so that people don't have to have 2 incomes in order to get by. And I think it's a combination of maybe people tempering their expectations on their lifestyles. Yes, possibly, but also it would go a long way to have government stop stepping into everything.